I mean, let's roll.
Well, we're
Hey.
rolling, and welcome to another episode Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Rachel.
Hey.
How many people have messed up your name where they're just like Raquel?
All the time. Basically, I respond to pretty much anything that's not derogatory, or even sometimes if it's derogatory, if it's funny, I'll respond to it. Because why not?
Whenever somebody says when they go like Robert, it's like always someone and they're yelling at me, so the back of like my neck hairs stand up. But then I feel like I've heard sometimes people call me dumbass, and I still turn my head like, why did I do that? Like, oh my God, I've been called that too much as a kid.
I mean, I'm guilty of that. They'll be like, hey, yo, bitch. And I'll be like, me? I mean, yeah, me.
That brings up
Okay.
a good point. When people forget somebody's name and you're just like, hey man, it's like, do you even remember who I am? Yeah.
Oh, guilty of that.
Yeah, I am too.
I'm guilty of that all the time though. And I'll look at like my friends and be like, oh, and they were like, do you know that? I was like, yeah, I know them. They were like, what's their name? I'm like, I don't know. So I always try to get people to say it, which is terrible.
Look, this just happened to me. All right, so I'm really good at remembering people's names and faces and conversations, everything. I can remember every single one I've done. I met a girl in, elementary school, and not elementary school, probably 6th grade. I guess that's elementary school, but she was only there for a year. And I just saw her, and it's been like 10, maybe 12 years later. And she was just in that one class I had for that 1 year. And she scanned her card to my gym where I work. And she walks in. I'm like, hang on a second, I know you from somewhere. And I'm looking at her, and then I look at her name, and I'm like, no freaking way. We had a 6th grade class together. My name's Robbie. And she goes, I don't remember you, but what's 6th grade class? And I told her the teacher, and she's like, oh my God, I was in that class, but I was only here for like 6 months. I'm like, yeah, but my memory's that fucking good. And if I didn't that, I would only remember birds.
Robbie, she thinks you're a creep. No,
Probably.
I hate to tell you that.
I've had that happen too.
In fact, she does.
I consider myself way better looking, but okay.
I mean, I'm just telling you, like, she's going to be side-eyeing you for the longest, and it's gone back to her friends, and it's like, yo, this guy, like, straight up remembered me. I was there for 3 hot seconds, and he remembered.
I would just think I'm an impressionable
I mean, I legit
person.
believe you. I'm just telling you that that's what she's thinking.
I was going to ask you this question before I said that, which was, if your life could be a TV show, what would it correlate to? And you just made mine feel like it's like Before the 90 Days, but like murder edition, where I'm going to start hurting people.
I mean, yeah, probably. It's all good. Don't worry about it. I'm equally as creepy, Robbie. It's fine. Like, you don't mean to be creepy, and neither do I. It's okay.
It all comes from a place of hurt. I've just been treated like I don't matter. And I'm like, every time I meet somebody, I have to remember them forever, so they always know they matter to at least one person.
I'm sending you a virtual hug. It's all good. We're good.
You have an emotional box of chocolates I could have.
You never know what you might get, especially if you get one from me, because I'm a little terrible sometimes.
You just eat half the box. Be like, I couldn't help it, but there's half for you.
Oh, well, speaking of that, actually, you don't have kids yet. Count yourself lucky, right?
I mean, that I know of.
I mean, do you want some? I have 3. I can easily.
I thought about adopting when I was a kid. When I was like 10 years old, I wanted to adopt a 22-year-old so he could buy me beer, but then that's not how it works at all.
Although this is actually a really good concept, and I feel like we could explore. Well, wait, didn't they do this? Isn't this Big Brother, Big Sister? What if it's bad Big Brother, Big Sister, though?
Okay, hang on a second. Could you adopt a 40-year-old man and then have them cook for you. Like if I wanted to adopt like a 40-year-old Chinese guy that just moved to his country, doesn't speak any English, but I'm like, I'm hungry and I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to use my oven. Could you cook me meals?
So honestly, I have explored this idea and I get told that I'm wrong on so many levels. So right now, my husband and I are separated, but my husband's family is from Trinidad. And I was like, doesn't someone want a green card? Like they can come stay here. Yes, I said it. I know I'm rotten. Listen, there should be a warning on this. I'm kind of a shitty person.
Hey,
I'm just
I
saying.
I see. I went on those sites where it's like, foreignmeat.com, where you could have somebody get me come over here. And actually,
Really?
I've had some Romanian chicks and
What?
Bulgarian chicks ask if I was looking for
How
a woman
severe?
to get married, and I'm like, I'm only 17, and then it's happened like every year since, because I used to work at a hotel, so we get them over all the time because they're like, we want to move here. I'm like, well, if you don't love me, why would I marry you? They're like, sex, and I was like, I'm not that interested in that to get married, because I know when you get married, it always ends badly and everyone loses half their shit. So I'm like, I like my shit. It doesn't mean much to me, but it is a lot, and it's all I have.
You know, you should make a list of things besides sex, though. Maybe that, like, you want someone to cook Chinese food for you. Like, we could explore this and make options. I'm
All
just
I'm
saying.
asking is for a roommate who can make very good Chinese food, doesn't mind me going to the gym at 2 o'clock in the morning, and also just doesn't need to really have conversations. I love conversation, but I don't have them
But
in
you,
my everyday life.
so you only want to do it. Like, so if he needs to talk to you, he needs to make like a Zoom
When
in the
someone
other
asks
room.
me, like when someone goes, "Hey, how's your day going?" I'm like, "Hang on a second, let me get this on recording first." All right, there we go.
Right.
Now, if anybody says anything, I can that's happened. That brings up a good
I,
point.
you know what? I'm right there with you. Right there with you.
But the factor of when I've gotten into like a conversation with my cousin, he pulled out his phone immediately and hit record so he could remember everything that was being said to use to me later. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to prove you wrong because I remember everything I've ever said. He's like, remember when you
Right?
said you take me to work? And I was like, no, I said, if you let me know, I can try and make room for it, but you didn't. So I couldn't make room for it. And he goes, oh, that's some lawyer shit. I'm like, it's not lawyer. It's just being a let me know in advance, like Monopoly. You don't get $200
Right.
for pass and go.
I hear you. Man, I'm
Rachel,
telling
we've
you.
gone all over. Can you please talk about yourself for a little bit?
Sure. I really am bad at this. So I guess, I have 3 kids. I have a 14-year-old girl. God help me. A 12-year-old boy who is just like, I think is it Trey Kennedy who does middle school Maddox? Have you ever seen that? If you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He's like this middle school gamer kid. Drives me insane. Not because he games. Like, I play video games. It is what it is. But like the noodle, like, ugh, like he does that all the time. I'm
Oh,
just like,
I had a buddy that used to play Halo, and when he played, he would act like he was running in the game. I kind of do that now, but I do it in a funner way. What I do is I play like Assassin's Creed, where you got to run around the
yeah,
whole map everywhere. But I have a
yeah, I
cycle in my
play.
room, so I'll cycle for 6 hours and just play video games. So it's like I'm
Oh,
getting
that's
exercise
actually
and
a really good idea.
yeah.
Yeah, mine isn't like that. I actually took him in like 2 years ago, and the doctor was like, he's getting tech neck. And I was like, what the like, you got to get out and get some exercise. And when, I make him mow the yard, he mowed it like a blind ass beaver.
Wow,
I swear
what
to God.
a blind ass
There was
beaver.
like, there were rows missing. And there was like, son, do you not think that I'm gonna like have a problem with this? And the girls were like, we told him, mom. And he was just like, well, yeah, and I'm just like,
Man, I really wish I had sisters. My best friend had two sisters, and those, I mean, I still talk to them today, but like a lot of my initial, like, oh my God, there's people in this world that have a caring side to them that, like, if I get hurt,
Oh,
they're like on my backs, like we're here for you. And like, I learned all about Greek mythology, all from his older sister that I still see today. She messages me and stuff. How am I doing? I'm like, good. And she's like, you studying? You doing any schoolwork? Then I got like my brother that's like distant and cold. I'm like, hey, want to play video games? No, shut up. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna play by myself and invest all my emotional time into it.
I really like your friends' sisters because my girls aren't like that. They're evil little bitches. Like I love them, but
They're your
maybe
daughters.
I mean I love them, but maybe the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I don't know. So the
Oh,
youngest one is 10, and she's a trip. She came out the womb like fighting people. She's a prankster. In fact, was it yesterday? No, it was the day before. So she found, I don't know where she found it. It was like a rubber spider about this big. And she had put it underneath like the toilet paper roll, but like one ply under. And when I went in to use the bathroom, I was like, what the? So I was like, hell no. So like she does stuff like that all the time. When she was 5, she like kindergarten, she brought home a chicken bone, but I didn't know whose it was because it was like licked clean. I found this random ass like chicken bone, like from like a wing, like a drumstick,
yeah.
on the ground. And I was like, what in the hell is this? So I'm like looking at it. I pick it up and it's like clean. And I'm like, when was the last time I served chicken wings? And I'm like, no, it's been a minute. And then I'm looking at the dog and I'm thinking, there is no way that this dog did not like just devour this clean. So I'm like, kids, everybody come down here. So I made them all come downstairs and I was just like, what what is this? And she's like, oh, that's mine. And I'm like, "Mm, her name is Vivica. I was like, Vivica, why do you have a chicken wing? And she was like, oh, well, I'm gonna prank dad with it. And I said, "Mm, what? Explain." And she was like, so we were eating chicken wings today at school and I got this great idea. And I said, okay. She was like, so I ate it all, licked it clean, put it in my pocket because you're not allowed to take food from the cafeteria. Now, mind you, she's in kindergarten. Okay. Um, and then she was like, then I snuck it into my backpack. I'm like, this whole time I'm trying to keep my face straight because I'm like, this kid is demented as hell. And she was like, and I'm gonna put it on his pillowcase and then put some ketchup on it and it's gonna look like a bloody finger. And I was like, first off, no the hell you're not. I
Your
was
kid's
like, you
not
ain't.
demented. She's a genius. Oh
Oh,
my
well,
God. The
it
fact that
gets better.
she didn't look at the perspective, though, of how weird it is to take a chicken bone and put it into your
No,
pocket and then
she don't care.
carry it all the way through. So was it at the end of the day at least, or was it close to the end, or was like she had the whole day with that in her
No,
pocket?
it was like they ate at 10:30, these kindergartners did. So this is like 4:30 in the afternoon. This child though is super smart. She's either going to be a criminal or like something amazing. But I mean, she might be a criminal because that's how genius she is. So when she was 4, she went to pre-K and we had handed down like a dresser that was my oldest daughter's and her name happens to be Naomi. And I was in her room and I was helping her put away clothes and I look over at her dresser and I see graffiti on it. Happens to be Naomi's name, but I knew it wasn't on there before. And I look a little closer and I can tell Naomi didn't do this. So I look at Vivica and I look at the dresser and I'm like, Vivica, do you have something you want to tell me? And I do the look back and forth. And she's like, nope, I'm not saying nothing. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like,
Snitches
so
get
I'm like,
stitches.
So she knows. Like, she's
Your
psycho.
kid's a genius.
Oh, well, yeah. So then I ask her again. I'm like, listen, if you say it now, like, you're not going to get in trouble. Like, it'll be fine. I was like, do you have something you want to tell me? Look at the dresser, look at her, look back at the dresser. And she was like, I'm not saying nothing. I'm not do nothing. I'm not saying nothing. And I was like, all right. I was like, I'm about to get your dad up in here. And she was like, I don't care. And I was like, little heifer. So I call him in there and I was like, last chance. And I look at the dresser. I'm looking dead at it. I look at her. I look back at it. I was like, are you sure? I'm not saying nothing. I was like, this is it. I was like, then what is this? And I point to it and she's like, I not do that. That says Naomi. I was like, well, first off, I know that she didn't write that. And she was like, I said, you did. And she was like, how you know? And I was like, because the N is backwards. This kid was weak.
First off, smart kid needs
right.
a dictionary to figure out how to. It's proper English on that one. Oh my God, that was
so because she was only 4. She just did it the opposite way. But you want to know why she did it? Naomi pissed her off. So
I know, I get that, but I meant the whole, like, I ain't say nothing. If that was said in my household, that's a slap to the face. I swear to God, even now, like, I'll be talking so fast and then, like, I'll say something and my mom's like,
right.
I'm like, yo, as a punishment, I used to sit down and have to write a page of the dictionary onto a separate piece of paper with the full definition, synonyms, antonyms, all that shit. And I did the whole freaking dictionary. That's why my vocabulary is so expansive. But I can, when I'm talking and you're in the comfortability of your own house, you don't feel like needing to be proper on the words that you're saying.
Well, I get both of those. And yes, so I do try to correct them, but there's a piece where I was just like, this is getting ridiculous and I want to see where it goes. I'm one of those people who let people, I like to watch the ridiculous. I sometimes egg it on. It's terrible.
You're an instigator. No, Rachel, no.
Sometimes I'm really curious about people's stories. When we go out as a group, my friends are always like, God, could you not? And I was like, guys, I like just met this person. They're like, could you not? Like, we have a rule where they're like, no randoms, Rachel. And I was like, okay, rude. Like, this is, whoever. And they were like, you don't know them. I was like, I mean, I just met them. They seem fun. I'm that person.
You're a story maker. That's what it is.
Yes.
You want to make the night fun and make it better. That is a good and a bad thing. I've had stories end up pretty bad that way, but also I've had some pretty, really amazing experiences. I've always the type of person, if I see like there's a guy that lives probably like maybe a couple houses down from me, but he works at Food Line and it's about maybe a 10-minute drive, and he walks every day to work. And it was raining really hard the other day, and I just picked him up and I took him to work, and he's just like an elderly, like, black guy, was just like, why are you doing this? Like, we're worried about the mask thing, we're worried about like this thing. I'm like, dude, just hop in, dude, take your mask off. I don't care. I'm not a big guy on it if you're not about it, but I'll wear it for your safety if that's how you feel. And I drop him off at Food Line. He just looks at me and goes, never even said hi to you. And I was like, yeah, man. I was like, but you're safe. And then like he went inside. I'm like, I'm that type of dude. Like, I don't care. I picked up people at 1:00 in the morning and did it. And it's all about the stories to tell. And I think it's about, you want to take those shots sometimes. I mean, how many times in the world do people take a shot nowadays? It's like, let's just play it safe and play what gets us through the door.
And see, I don't do that. I maybe used to, and I don't anymore. So that's kind of what I'm like, living my life out there, just kind of like, I do a worst case scenario. So I'm like, can I die? No. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Am I going to get fired? Maybe. Can I talk my way out of it? probably.
The best part
Um,
about not having responsibilities like kids or like anything is that at my job now, I say stuff to people where I just call them out on their bullshit. Like some dude for a guest pass is $15. He walks in and under the plexiglass that we have for the, the germs, he just tosses $15 at me and it goes all over the place. And I just look at him, I go, pick it up. He goes, what? I want a day
yeah.
pass. I said, no, pick it up. And I just learned nowadays, like, I don't care anymore. I just call people out on their bullshit to the point where my friends will be like, dude, slow down and eat some pocket jerky. And I'm like, what the fuck's pocket jerky? He pulls out jerky out of his pocket and he's like, try some. I'm like, where are you going? That's why I can sympathize with your daughter on the chicken bone, where I'm like, my buddy's carrying around pockets of Jack Links. And
Listen,
I'm like,
he
what the
has to
hell?
have snacks. He's stressed. He needs his stress snacks. They're in his pocket.
I'm like, he fasts all day, so he just has
Yeah.
jerky in his pocket for emergency scenarios. And I'm like, most
When it's
people
like too much, he's like, Jesus, I need the fucking jerky.
most people carry like mace or something in an emergency scenario, and you're
I mean,
carrying
a
Jack
key.
Links.
He's like, I got you. Hold on here. Take a snap of this Slim Jim. Oh,
It's gonna
that's
start a
actually really
trend.
funny.
It's gonna start a trend. Jack Links. I'm like, why do you have Jack Links? And he's just like, in case I get hungry, I don't know where I might be in a meeting. I'm like, what
I,
meetings do you go to?
So
Like,
I work with a girl who always has snacks. So, and people know it. And sometimes they're like, take advantage of her. And she's super nice. And I always want to be like, hey, y'all ease up off from her snacks. But I'm like you though. I call out the bullshit when I see it. However, it's an exhausting job sometimes because I think people rely on people like us to call out that bullshit and then they don't do it themselves sometimes. So it's kind of exhausting sometimes. Like I feel like I spend a lot of time like fighting battles that aren't necessarily my battles, but like I can't sleep at night if I don't say something.
there's a thing that came out a long time ago that kind of like it's I guess you can take a test on it, like an IQ test, like you would take online, but it's called Truth Wizards. And most of the time, Truth Wizards are people that can sense out bullshit. And it's really interesting to see the type of people that have it, because like I have probably have 30 different recordings that are unreleased and will never be released because the people throughout the whole entire thing just lied to me, where I sat there and just like, okay, like I'll end it. You know what I mean? If I can't get into
Yeah.
it, it's because like I had a dude come on that talked about he was working for the government and he couldn't give his real name and everything. And this is when I was like, okay. But he talked about Xbox the whole time, where I'm like, yeah, you're in the government and you talked about Fortnite like it was
But don't, is there not a part of you? Because like when you said that, like the part of me is like, haha, let's go down this hole. Cause I'm that person. I'm like, oh really?
that's
Tell
well,
me
I did for
more.
an hour, and then I'm like, I'm not posting it because it's a
Well,
complete
yeah.
lie. But like, there's
Yeah,
sometimes
that's
like
true.
I'll be listening to something or I'll hear somebody say something in conversation, and the one person's like, "Wow, you did that! That's amazing!" I look at them, I'm like, "He just fed you a line of BS. Can you not tell it?"
So I think there's people probably like you and I who have natural like BS detectors, but it may be because like, I don't know. I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm a good BSer. I don't tend to do it like all the time, but in my actual job, um, I I kind of am incognito with our podcast. So my actual job is helping people. I do community outreach actually for the state. So as shitty of a person as I am in like real life, I try to make up for it in my job, and I love what I do. I get to do all sorts of really great things. Really, it has to do with access, children, families. Like I'm really, really passionate about it. It sucks. It sucks that, there's not more pieces that I can do with that. Cause it's state work. So it's so much bureaucracy, But the pieces I do get to do are just a ton of fun, and it's helpful, and I love that piece. So,
Well, I can agree with you on like a good BSer, because when I was a kid, I used to do it all the time. But then like my great grandfather died when I was like 15 years old. And like
mhm,
before he died, he was like, there's two things in the world: always be an honest man and always make sure you're on time. And then like those words, I was like, all right. So then eventually I just cut out all the BS to where
right,
like now I've said stuff in this podcast where someone's like, that's not true. And then I've had the person that experienced it with me on the podcast to talk
right.
about it. I'm like, so much of the shit I do is so stupid and dumb and that I don't really consider amazing. But people are like, I can't believe you did that. I'm like, yeah, I got hit by a jet ski. That's true. And I'm still paying for
I-
it today.
I'm glad that you're okay.
I'm
Like,
not.
I did actually listen. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you're alive, walking, like here.
Yeah.
Things
I have
could
a
be a lot worse.
All right, so I've been waiting to introduce this. So I've talked about a
Okay.
fear in my life that I would never do because I'm too afraid of this one thing, and it's called chiropractics. So,
Okay.
because of the jet ski injury, I've never actually fully recovered from it. And the years and years of lifting have kind of made it even worse, to where I actually went to the chiropractor for my very first time. Biggest fear in my entire life. I told the guy,
How was it?
I'll tell you, he was messing with my back and everything, and he pressed down on my lower left side, and he hit there, and I fucking almost leaped off the table. And I'm like, ow. He's like, that's not supposed to happen. I'm like, okay. So what's our thing of course here? He goes, I think your left pelvic, like where your pelvis is, your left one is
Mm-hmm.
tilted. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And he started describing a bunch of things. I'm like, I'm feeling that. I'm really actually paying for it. And he goes, okay. He goes, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to crack you. I'm like, I have one thing.
You're like,
Yeah, I was like, my biggest fear is ending up in a wheelchair with the whistle where you got to
yeah.
blow into that. And I told him that, and he starts laughing. He goes, that's not going to happen. He goes, that would be up towards your upper part of your neck. This is towards your lower part,
Yeah.
where I'm like, but my legs are down there. He's like, yeah, but the chances of that happening. I'm like, okay. So he goes, take your right leg, cross it over your left one. My left one's the one with the issue. He goes, ready? I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah. He goes, watch this. And he lays on me. And the thing, while my spine is twisted, doesn't make a noise. And I'm
Goes,
like, I'm okay. He goes,
what am I?
compare that to your other side now. Switch legs. And I did it to my other leg. He goes, and all you hear is this loud ass pop. And immediately I start moving my hands and toes. I'm like, oh my God.
You're like, am I still working? Am I
Yeah.
working?
He's like, can you move them? I'm like, yeah. He goes, how do you feel? It's like, I was worried about you doing that and me being in a wheelchair with a whistle for the rest of my life. But now I'm more worried that you're going to do that and I'm going to shit my pants. And he starts laughing. He goes, well, you signed a paper. And I'm like, yeah. But he goes, how did that feel? I'm like, honestly, I'm really scared, but it felt really, really good. And then he puts these things on my
Right?
back to massage my muscles. It was like a muscle stimulation thing. And he goes, tell me when it gets like almost near close to where you can't handle it anymore. And he turns it, and I'm like, all right, this really hurts, but I'm going to go one more pass. He goes one more pass. I'm like, that's perfect. Then he leaves the room for 15 minutes, and I'm fucking in agony, like, oh, this is like somebody's killing me. I'm like,
And
what
you
is it gonna?
can't get them
Yeah,
off, right?
but I'm like
'Cause you're
laying there,
like,
and it's like it's in the middle of pain and pleasure, where you're like, this really
yeah.
feels good, but it's like so, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And he comes back, turns it off, and goes, how'd that feel? I'm like, I really felt it in my upper lat. It felt like somebody was
Hmm.
stabbing me. He goes, yeah, the other ones kind of like slipped off where I couldn't, like they weren't on tight, but that one was on the tightest. And I was like, yeah, I felt someone like taking a
I
brass
know,
knuckle into
dude.
me. But I got an appointment there later today, and I'm like, I can see where it helps people. And it's like, I'm
Yeah.
trying new options.
I mean, I think I'm always up to try something new all the time. Like, I think that that's what life's about, right?
Yeah, but does that go with skydiving? Because I still don't want to do
So,
that.
real talk, I have never wanted to go skydiving ever. I'm like afraid of heights. I'm that person who gets on like the second step of the ladder and my knees start knocking. Like, I'm that person. I'm like, oh. But I was watching a video the other day and I thought, I might want to do this. Like, I don't know if it's like getting older. I don't know if it's the fact I might be having a midlife crisis. I don't know. But I'm actually considering doing it. It could be the fact that I've been stuck in this house for 5 months with the Rona and the kids home and they're going back to school, that maybe I'm like, well, shit, jumping out of an airplane doesn't sound that bad right now. One, it gets me out the house. Two, I don't know, you feel something right now. Like, I don't know.
I've really thought about this because I had podcasted with a good friend of mine. His name's Ian McGlynn, and his day job is he is a trainer for parachute marine or parachute troopers. So he jumps out of an airplane probably 5 times every day. And I was talking to him about the fear of it, and he just goes, "It never goes away.
Yeah.
Every single jump I have it." And I'm like, I could do it if it was like somebody like grabbed me and just jumped out. And I'm just like, fuck, like I could do that. But the fear of actually getting there and be like, jump. And it's like, even if I had cancer or something where I was going to die the next day, I'm like, I'm good, because the one time I thought I could do it, that day I had read an article about a woman that both her parachutes failed. And I'm like, I can't. Like, I would be thinking, can I turn the person on my back to hit the blow so I land on top of them? Killing
That
him,
is so
but
terrible.
breaking every bone in my body. Like, you do so much to try and work around it.
Terrible, but factual. But I mean, all right. So for both of her parachutes failed, then like clearly that's what's up. Like,
God's
she was
like,
gonna
I don't
get
like
hit
you.
by a bus regardless. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter. She could have walked in like a sink. Oh, she could have stayed in her house and a sinkhole would have taken her. Like, that's my philosophy. And I don't get it. Like, I'm just like, whatever.
I don't care if a banister in the middle of my room falls and hits me in my head in the middle of the night and kills me. I don't want to plummet into the earth at 1,000,000 miles an hour and literally fucking explode when I hit it. That's just me.
But
I
you ain't
don't know
gonna
what it is.
feel it.
Doesn't matter. I'd rather be feeling it than that. That just seems like the
So,
wrong way to go. Honestly, in my perspective, if anybody is going to take me out, I'm so like against authority and so prideful that I'm like, I want to be the one that does it. Like, not like a shoot yourself type thing, but like
I'm
if
like,
if
do we
I'm
need to
gonna
call your mom?
no, if I'm gonna die, it's gotta be by like my like if anything, like I'm skydiving, I figure out both parachutes are gone. I gotta be like, that's okay, because I'm gonna turn my head and hit this. And I hit like a bird in the middle of the air or something where it's like, no, he died because he hit the bird and then he hit the ground.
Oh,
It has to be
got
like
it.
that. Because to feel like
Like,
it's not
okay.
in my own hands when I spend so much time figuring out what
Okay.
I want to do with my life, where I'm like, I need that. Like, if a guy's gonna make me paralyzed, I'd rather it be me. Like jumping off. He
I
jumped
mean,
off
I
this
get
roof.
it. I get it. I
Okay.
get it.
Now
I
I feel
heard you
like
say something though,
I'm gonna
when
cry
you
in the
figure
shower.
out what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you,
You never figured out.
but you're like in your 20s, right?
Yeah, but I'll admit this to my kind of side here is I've talked to so many people that my wisdom, if I was gonna be serious, is probably like a 90-year-old man. Where like I've
Oh,
had
I
people.
believe that.
Yeah, and it's aged me, and now I look at like every single day where I'm staring at my desk and I'm just like, what's the fucking point? Like, can we just wrap this shit up? I mean, God.
So have you figured out what you're going to be in your life?
Yeah, I'm going to be a porn star at the age of 26 because my doctor tried to get me into porn, and I told him not now, but when I'm in 26.
26. Why did you choose
I feel like
26? Is
if you
that
don't
just a good number for you?
I feel like it's like right before your 30s, and I'm like, if you don't have anything or at least an inclination of what you want at 26 or 30, then it's just a good age to start doing something that's going to make you famous and rich fast. And I reached out to Ron Jeremy, and I'm still waiting for his response to get back to the podcast.
All right. Well, I'm definitely going to have to tune into that one. So, ironically, you said 26. I had in my head like this ideal number, like 27 was going to be my year. You know what happened all 3 of my 27th birthdays? Well, two.
I love how
So,
you did
yeah.
that. Thank you for that.
Right, all 3 of them. Two of them I was pregnant for, and like the third one, I think it just fucking sucked. So like, I just was like, this is shitty.
But you
So
gave life, or yeah, you had 2 kids. Wait, did you have them
well, I
on your
have 3.
27th?
So no, not exactly. So I had actually 3 kids and like 4 years of marriage, which was insanity.
Did you
And
get
then
pregnant on your birthday?
I don't think so.
Then
I
how'd you
don't
know you were
know.
pregnant on both your 27th
So
birthdays?
because I had there was a baby in my
Oh,
belly.
okay.
Do we need to talk about the birds and the bees?
Honestly, I skipped health class. I liked the video, but they did this thing called Just Around the Corner where it's like, just around the corner, just around the corner.
I don't.
And the clapping was the best part. I honestly tuned out the rest of the video when they started talking about hair and shit. I was like, I can't
Well,
focus.
the crappiest part is that the real talk. My son comes downstairs. God, was it this past weekend? Yeah. So and he's like, "Can I go stay with Dad?" And I said, "Why?" And
Puberty.
he was like, "I just discovered that like girls have, you know, periods." And I said, "What are you talking about? We had this conversation before." And he was like, "Yeah, but like they have them more often than I thought." And I said, "Well, yeah, we have them like monthly." And he was like, "What?" He was like, "Coach King told me it only happened once a year." And I was like, well, first off, Coach King needs to be fired. I was like, that's what's wrong with half of this country. I was like, yeah, once a month it happens. And I do feel bad for you. I was like, what you probably should do is keep a stack of chocolate in your room and just fucking throw it at us when it happens.
I had a
And
health
stay the fuck
class.
out the way.
I had a health class where my teacher was a girl and there was only other 2 girls in our class and there was about 10 guys in there. And both the girls happened to be in the same class, like a theater class. So they took a field trip. And it's the end of the year. We had to sign this paper in the beginning where it was like, we're going to be looking at dirty images and what STDs and all these things look like they tried to
Yeah.
do to scar you
Yeah.
from never having it again.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah,
so after straight up a whole entire ending last class, like this is our goodbye, see you next year or never see you again, she's showing blue waffles and all these things on the big screen projector in front of all, and we're 15 years old and it's like that's what's down there. And then she left us with the best advice I could ever get from anybody about this. And she just stops and she goes, guys, if you're thinking about having fun this summer, all I can say is it's lower than you think. Now, for people out there
That's
that know what that
actually
means,
good advice.
it's fucking great advice. I
It
was
is
like,
good
oh my
advice.
God, like that was wisdom,
Yep.
even though she scarred the shit out of me with things I would
Yep.
never want to see, where I'm like, is that a fish? That was my biggest question. Oh,
Is it? I don't know. Yeah,
how do we
no,
get out of
it's
this rabbit hole?
um I, we can talk about some of the games I played. Do you play games?
I
So
played.
that's what we do on our podcast.
Oh, yes, thank you, thank
Did
you.
you know that?
Yes, let's talk about
I'll
the
make that
podcast.
terrible segue.
It's a
I'm actually
beautiful.
shitty at segues.
That's a great segue.
Huh.
Oh God, please talk about the podcast.
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about it. So actually, it's kind of funny. So Esther said to me the other day, because we just added video to our podcast because we're slow to the game. We don't really care.
I
I mean,
was
we do care,
400
but we don't.
episodes in when I did that. So
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. So, but she was like, Rachel, we need like a YouTube introductory video. And I said, okay, well, let's just do it tonight. And she was like, gives me this side eye. Esther's famous for her side eye, by the way. Like the video is worth watching only to watch Esther give me stupid ass looks when I say something dumb. And I look at her, go ahead.
I was about to say, segue. You ever hear somebody's name without seeing their face and start picturing what they look like?
Yes.
So I worked with a woman named Esther, and she was a small Latino woman. So I don't think Esther is the same image, I guess you would say, as the one that is your co-host.
So Esther is Asian, and
Bias.
she's
really in the ballpark.
She's like white and Asian. So, but she definitely still looks Asian. So, yeah. But Esther, no H though. We're very, which it sucks though when my iPhone goes to like, even though I've added it 1,000 times, it changed her name to Water all the time. So I'm like, whatever. Water and I are going places. Like I just leave it there.
Well, my phone, I think the one it does all the time where I'm like, how have you not learned this is the word I'm using is the one that rhymes with duck. It always
Yes.
goes to duck. I'm like, when am I ever, like, you just took the whole
I'm never
gravity.
ducking something ever. I have never ducked something in my life. That is wrong and vile.
You use it in a way different way than I do, but no, mine, like, it takes the gravity out of the impact of the message where I'm like trying to send like this freaking text, like back when you send a flip phone text and you got a paragraph and you had to read that because someone meant that means they sat there and triple tapped and all that shit. Now it's like, and they can send a paragraph. I get 8 paragraphs from somebody and I'm like, can I get a response in? But then I send this message and it says ducking and I'm like, the whole gravity and the whole thing where I was like, I'm the man. It just, it's gone right out of it.
So you said flip phones though. I got my daughter. So my daughter's 14, the oldest one. And she couldn't act right last year. So she had an iPhone, and we weren't playing. I told her, I say, get right, get it tight. She couldn't get it together. Guess who got an upgrade on her phone and a new box? And we opened that bad boy up and it was a flip phone. We don't play. We have 2 flip phones in our house. She has since gotten her iPhone back, but she had that flip phone for an entire year and she was embarrassed as hell.
Look, I come
so evil.
So my grandmom helped me and my brother get phones, and we're on kind of her phone plan. But I've never break my phones. Honestly, I'm the last person to get an upgrade. And honestly, I would go back to a flip phone because I feel like it's better for kids just on the aspect.
I got one for you.
So social media is pretty bad. But I remember the era of flip phone when I first got my upgrade. I was like, I finally got a real phone. It's not the Amigo where you can only call 3 people, and one is your mom, the other one's your dad, and the other one's like your cousin because you got no friends. And I worked at a water park with my brother. Every week, my brother was breaking his phone. I'm like, are you just fucking tossing it down the slide? Like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm a lifeguard, man. It's in my pocket. I'm like, like, you have a phone that is apparently waterproof. But, like, every week was getting him a new phone where I was like, sorry, you got to wait on your upgrade because your brother needs a phone. I'm like, no, he fucking doesn't. Tell him a messenger pigeon works just fine.
Sounds like your brother needs his ass kicked a little bit. I'm sorry. I have 2 brothers and we fought all the time. One of them is like 2.5 years younger than me. And then the other one is 10 years younger than me. And we were just fighting all the time.
Did you want 3 kids because you had 3 siblings?
So no, actually, Vivica was a surprise. So I have 2 birth control babies, both the girls. And
what are you doing? What are you saying to me right now? Don't say birth control babies. That's like food stamp babies.
No, so like I was on the pill with my oldest, but then I took antibiotics, which everyone knows, oops, that'll F you up. And then I actually had a 10-year IUD with my youngest that didn't come out. And when I went in and my son was only 7, 8 months old, and he was the worst fucking baby, the worst baby ever. Like he was like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde baby. Like he was colicky. He didn't sleep through the night.
I will relate to you on this factor is watch them grow up. Because I still kind of have ADHD, but I learned to control it as I got older. But I mean, the school didn't know what that was when I was a kid. So they thought I was just mentally challenged. They used to lock me in a room with just white walls. It was a desk. And it was like bad. I ended up transferring schools, but I used to talk about this room a lot. And you want to talk about like confirming my stories? There's an episode, I think it's like 70 something with Jared Johnson. I used to talk about I would walk past this room that they used to put me in before I left, and they would have a mentally challenged kid in there that would just slam his head up against the walls and freak out. And I was like, this is horrible that the school's doing this. But nobody knew what all this like stuff was. We didn't really know how to handle it. So I talked about this, and he goes, and starts finishing the room. And this is when I did these in person. Like people would come to my
Oh,
house for the
wow.
first 90. So he's in front of me and he takes the words out of my mouth of describing the room. He goes, that person that you saw in that room was my brother. And then he starts going into this hard thing where his brother was abused in a rehab facility for mentally challenged people. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like, bam, that just confirmed it. But the whole factor was I watch videos and VHSs of me as a kid now, like, or not now, but like back in the day, any parent and I would be like, lock his ass in a hot car. I would say it about myself, lock me in a hot car, beat the shit out of me. I couldn't handle that. And I give so many people that are able to deal with that, like people like you that talk about like, oh, like kids are just hellions. Yeah, but the ability not to freak out and lose your shit and know how to
Right.
handle it, I commend you for. But I grew out of my stuff. My parents refused
Yeah.
listening to what people were recommending to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I turned into this person where like, how did you become the good one? You were the bad kid we had, and the other one was the good one. Now you guys have flip-flopped. And I'm like, I think it's more because, like, I don't know, life just seems to balance out a little bit.
So my son actually does have ADHD, and it is actually hereditary. I don't know if you knew that.
My
Typically,
grandfather has it.
okay, so I actually have ADHD, and so, but it looks different in women than it does in men. So, but my son does have it, but he was this really clingy baby. So it's just been a challenge, you know. But his is not so much a behavior; it's more of an attention thing for him. So, you know, we just really kind of let him be. And when he needs redirecting, we do that. Like he's honestly the easiest. The girls are psycho. Like, and I'm gonna get it's their dad's fault. That's what I'm gonna say. So terrible. It probably isn't. It's probably totally my fault, whatever. But it's all cool. But yeah, I got pregnant with Vivica. And I had that 10-year IUD. And I remember I went into the doctor and the doctor was like, oh, do you know how rare this is? This is like winning the lottery. And I was like, except no.
It's like the opposite. It's a complete
Because I'm going to be broke as hell. Yeah. So I had all of them within like 4 years of marriage, but no, I wasn't planning on having 3. But I will tell you, like at the end of the day, it completes my family. Like she's a prankster. She cracks me up. You know, each one of my kids is very different, but three is a challenge, man.
That's
If
why
they say
I want,
you
if
can
I
have a
have,
bazillion.
well, if I have kids, which I've been
Mhm.
like contemplating, because like I said, the whole lock the car scenario thing. I see some
I
kids
get it.
and I'm like, damn, if I was like that parent, I would just haul off and hit that kid. But then I'm like, does that make me a bad person because I feel that way? And I'm like,
No.
I looked at my dad and I was like,
So long as you don't do
yeah,
it.
I was like, but I looked at my
Well,
dad, I was like, how did you manage me as a kid? Like I was so bad, like I would have easily beat the shit out of me. And he just goes, buddy, he goes, I just let you wear yourself out, man. He goes, it's
right.
not that
Yeah.
hard. And I'm just like,
No.
wow. But
There's
then I look at like, maybe I'll just bang like 19 girls a year for 5 years, then move to Hawaii, build a Mortal Kombat ring and let all the kids come and find me when they turn 18. And it'll be like fight for my love. And then it's, I think that's still a good idea. I think I might end up doing that. But to go off the kid thing, I always wanted a 3 siblings growing up because I wanted someone to beat up my older brother, who would be the middle child. But then I look at like, do I want kids now if I would have 3? I think it's fun to watch yourself evolve into your kids and to see what bits and pieces they take, like how much of I'll be with, well, hang on, there's goods and bads about it. But like growing up, like I have things from my dad that I can tell that I take from,
hmm
things from my mom, things from like from my brother, even my cousin, my long lost cousin that I didn't find out until last year that he was even alive. And
Oh
he lived
wow.
with us for a whole year. He was my 9th episode. And that was me meeting him and having a full on conversation, asking him questions. I was like, I've never fucking met you. You're 30 years old. What's your life like? What's about aliens? He's like, oh my God. But he stayed with us for a while and we started developing each other's skills, like kind of same habits,
Yeah.
everything, kind of same passions and stuff. And I think that's amazing. The fact that you might talk shit on how much your kids are crazy, but you know you love them.
Oh yeah. No, I totally do. It is hard. I will tell you that piece is hard when you end up with like a mini me. Um, because
Is it selfish to have kids? Because it technically is a piece of you.
no, I think, you do whatever you want to do. I do think you may have to do the 19 women in 1 year, because by the time that in child support catches up with your ass, you ain't gonna have that Mortal Kombat ring. It's gonna be made out of sand.
This is where you
Gonna...
get the adopted 40-year-old guy I was telling you about.
Okay. Oh,
He
okay.
pays the
We got a
child
backup plan.
support thing and then bakes the Mortal Kombat ring so I can just sit on my throne of lies and have fun.
I like it. So wait, so you play video games then, I'm assuming?
I'm getting back into it. It's a slow
Me
crawl.
too. I kind of got out of it for a while because honestly, it just, one, there wasn't a whole lot out that I was really into. And then two, like life. Like when I start playing, the kids are like, Mom, what's to eat? And I'm like, damn, dog, can you not figure this out? I'm like middle school addicts. I'm like, oh, leave me alone. I'm trying to kill some fucking dragons.
See, this is where it went crazy for me as a kid growing up. My parents always worked all the time, so I was kind of alone a lot. It's because my brother's older. He's going out and hanging out with his friends, going to movies and shit. So I'm like, okay, well, I started investing all my time into my Xbox. And then eventually it became emotionally unhealthy where like, no Xbox, take the cord away or something because I was playing too much.
No,
And then you
you
start
turn into
freaking
my
out. Yeah,
brother.
you start turning into a monster. But then I snapped out of it in school to where I joined a gym. And my dad said something that lasted in my head was like, if you end up giving up on this like you do, just let me know so I can stop paying the membership. And I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to be consistent in life.
Right.
And then guess what? Every day for 8 years and never missing a day, even during coronavirus, I had the key to my gym and I built a home gym. So I would put that there.
That's really cool.
But at the same time, now I'm looking at it like I don't want to spend my whole life just staring at weights in the same place over and over again. I want to explore the world. I want to try cuisine. I want to experience that it's actually lower than you think. I want to do the whole 9 yards.
So do you got a bucket list then?
I'm starting one. One is I want to meet
Right.
Ron Jeremy in person and see if he would shoot a porno.
I mean,
Would you deny it? Come on. Would you?
Listen, I wouldn't want to meet Ron Jeremy. Listen, he's really like, I've watched his stuff.
He's not
like I'm
good
older
looking.
than you. No.
What's the story?
Like, I mean, and I've watched his stuff because when I started watching porn, like so
look, all right, at some point we got to talk about the podcast. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, okay. I mean, we'll go there at some point. Esther knew that this was going to be a shit show, so she was just like, "This is right up your alley." she's like, "You're just a fucking mess." So she was like, "Go ahead, girl." And she loves me for it. See, I never even finished the YouTube promo. Like, never.
I'll put all the links in the description. Let's get to the
No, I mean, it was just a mess. The whole point was I was like, don't you think we should just shoot it like right now? And she was like, oh, I am a Virgo. We have to like make a script. And I was like, do we though? And then she just side-eyes me the whole way. And then I just start laughing. And I was like, I think that's the promo right there. Isn't that what it's about? Like we play games, you giving me looks, and then I laugh. And then I looked at Theon and I was like, don't you think this is great? And he was like, oh, because, he can't side with me because then Esther's going to get mad because that's her fiance, but he's also our magical producer. So
that's amazing. Now that you gave me that little detail, so I know who Theon was. I just thought he was just some random guy in your house. That's just like,
no,
dinner's at 7.
No. Theon is our magical wizard producer, and he does an amazing job. But he's also Esther's fiance. So, like, we're very lucky to. I'm the third wheel. Like, I'm the clinger honor. They're like, come on over.
But then you bring people over, that adds on more wheels. So then now you got to train.
I do. So I guess we'll talk about the podcast. So we play games, adult games, because apparently I brought up playing categories and everybody looked at me like I had like a third eye or something. And I was like, what?
Categories?
Oh, come on. That's a good game. All right, whatever. This is because you guys are going to lose.
I just played Monopoly. That's it. I think that's the only board game we owned in the house besides, Trouble was a big one when I was a kid.
Trouble. I hated fucking Trouble with the popper bubble. I swear my
Shit out of
brother
that.
had a way to like fucking rig that shit. We would fight all the time over that. Just kill him.
My
Anyway,
grandmom used to play Parcheesi, but then I'm like,
I played Parcheesi.
that's a good one. Chinese checkers too, but
Yes.
yeah.
So yeah, people bond over games though. So it originally started, the idea for the podcast originally started over the simple fact that we would have people over at our house for game night, just kind of on the weekends. You know, I've got the kids. Going out to the bars is fun, but it's expensive sometimes. And sometimes, you know, you can be broke, but still wanting to drink. It's easier to go down to the liquor store, grab you some rum, some soda, mix something up, make you some dips. I'm famous for doing all the dips. I always like a good dip.
Like a dip, like
just,
dipping the
no,
tobacco?
not like tobacco.
Oh.
No,
Well, I'm
like
from like a country
appetizers.
beach town. Like it's weird. Our town has
Where you
board
at?
shorts filled
Where you
people, and then there's also like just a wide selection of rednecks where it's like, what are you doing? Oh, that dude's surfing. What is that guy doing? He's shooting ducks. So you see just people coming
Oh,
in. I'm packing a hammer. I did it once. Worst experience in my entire life.
so it's basically the same thing kind of than where I'm from right now. Like we're in Savannah, so travel 15 minutes inland, same damn thing. Like same damn thing. So, but our love of games. So we started out and we used to play Cards Against Humanity. I'm sure everyone knows that game, right? Please tell me you know that game.
I've heard of it.
What?
I don't have friends. What do you want from me?
Well, listen, Rob.
I got a
when
guy
it's
that likes pocket jerky, and there's nothing else. That's it. We played Monopoly
By
with
the
credit
way,
cards, and I just fucking hated life.
I want you to know that pocket jerky is going on one of my Cards Against Humanity
Let me
cards
tell you
now.
something. I invested $800 into his business of now making home jerky, and I have to say, he lives about maybe 30 minutes away from me, so that's kind of a haul when you work and do
Yeah.
podcasts, and he works 24/7 too. But every time I see him, he's just like, I hadn't seen him in like a month, but he's one of my closest friends. Hadn't seen him in a month. He had a full-on cop mustache and had like Ray-Bans on, and he opens up his door. He's like, what's up? I'm like, I laughed for 15 minutes on his doorstep. I just couldn't. I was like, please tell me to pull over the car. Pull over the car. And he's like, shut up, dude. It's my new look. And then, I come in. He's like, I'm also making home jerky. I'm like, what the fuck happened in a month where this is all changed up on me?
I'm not pocket jerky. That's what happened. Pocket jerky. Okay, so Cards Against Humanity is basically a game where it gives you, I'm going back to it so that we can talk about how I'm adding pocket jerky to this.
Okay.
Like you write your own one in, and that's going in there. It's going to be an amazing card.
Is that like a weapon?
No, it's going to be an answer. So like a question may be, I can't even think. I should have had something ready. I don't know. We'll Google one. Go ahead.
I'm about to say I have a good story about salmonella and honey smacks, if that helps as a card.
Yeah.
I got
I would love to
salmonella
hear
from
this.
honey smacks.
How the hell did you get salmonella from honey smacks?
So in 2018, iceberg lettuce had a salmonella outbreak. Well, a lot of people don't know that also with iceberg lettuce, there was salmonella and honey smacks. And I was doing good at my job. I was like, oh, I'm making a lot of money. I don't have a whole lot of bills. Let me spend $5 on a box of cereal, which will only be honey smacks. That's my pride and joy. So I bought this thing. I felt good. I ate a bowl of it, and I got massively ill. Came back the next day to Walmart to get a Powerade because I needed my electrolytes. And the guy goes, yeah, did you buy any lettuce yesterday? I saw you with some lettuce. And I was like, yeah, I bought lettuce and honey smacks. He goes, dude, both those things have been recalled that they have salmonella. And I was like, so you're telling me that from when I got sick last night, it was from the honey smacks? He goes, probably. He goes, if you look, they're all taken off the shelves. I looked, they're all taken off the shelves. And it was like that for months. I go, so what should I do? He goes, throw out your box of cereal. You know what I did? I finished that whole fucking box because it was $5 and I got salmonella. Yes.
I'm going to eat that shit.
Exactly.
I'm going to eat it. When I was in high school, I one time drank from like this bottle of Dr. Pepper that had been rolling around in the backseat of my friend's car for like a month and a half. I mean, it was my bottle,
Canceled.
but everyone was like, that's so disgusting. And I was like, listen, hoes, I'm thirsty. I don't care that it's 1,000 degrees. Like, I will continue to do this. And they were like, you're going to die. But I honestly believe drinking from things like that gives you like a solid gut. I'm fine.
I did that. I had that mentality until I think I was at my grandparents' house when I was like 12, and I went into the back of my grandfather's station wagon, and there was a McDonald's cup in there, and I knew he always got McFlurries on the ride home, but it was like closed, so you couldn't tell what was in it. And
No.
I took a sip from it, and it had to be like from a week ago, dude, and a fly was in it. And I pulled it out of my mouth. I was like, "Ugh!" And I've never been able to ever, if anything, I have to see it, and I have to have it that day. If it's left in there a day or so, not touching it, not happening.
Yeah, I'm still guilty of it. I mean, I'll inspect it, and I'll still do it.
It's like if you drop bread on the floor, it's like 30-second rule. It's 10 seconds. It's like that. You make your own justification on time. Time is irrelevant. Doesn't matter.
Have you ever served someone something you shouldn't have served them?
Served?
Uh-huh.
Like
Like,
as a waitress or waiter or as like
or even as like, I don't know,
a dinner?
your like family member.
I've dropped something on the floor and not said anything and put it on the thing.
My grandma one time was making my grandpa, he's never going to listen to this. You can't hardly hear whatever. I don't give a shit. He's kind of an asshole, right? And he was always like, Karen. Yeah, my grandma's name was Karen, poor thing. But she was a nice Karen. She wasn't one of those call the police on everybody
unicorn,
Karen.
a nice Karen.
She was. She wasn't calling the police. But he was always like, Karen, where's my sandwich? Da, 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 da. And she was like, Jimmy, I'm coming. And so he was bitching about his sandwich. And her ass, we're all, in this family, we're all blessed with giant asses that knock shit off plate, like stuff off the wall and stuff, whatever. Her ass knocks the plate off from the counter, which now that I think about it, good Lord, like, that's a whole lot of ass. Knocks the plate off the counter. The sandwich lands like face up, but she had already put like the Miracle Whip on it, which in itself is atrocious, but whatever. That's what he likes, which should have given him a clue, whatever. And she hadn't swept in like a few days. There was little stuff on it. And I look at her and I'm like, well, what are you going to do? She's like, I'm not making him another sandwich. She's like, I'm going to slap this bologna on it. And she did. And his ass ate that damn sandwich. And I thought, well, you know, that's what you get. Stop being so mean.
This is literally why I don't ever go out to eat, and I only make my own food.
Listen, you didn't eat at Karen's Cafe. It was in her kitchen.
I know, but even I don't let any of my family members make me food, and I'm such an easy guy to buy for. Like, I'm not a person that's like, I want taquitos or all this type of stuff. I grew up on that, but what I make every single day is a $1 can of tuna and a salad. And that is straight up every meal is that. I don't know why. I've done it every day for 8 years. I'm just like, I'm fucking fine with this. I don't really need to explore the culinary kitchen that much.
So you have to watch out for girls apparently, because one time my husband and I had gotten into this argument and I don't remember what it was. All I know is he was wrong. Which, yeah, duh. And he would not apologize. And I'd like slept on the couch because I was pissed off.
You slept on the couch.
Well, yeah, because I just was mad. I didn't want to see his face. And it was fine. Like he's in the military, so he had to get up early. And I was like, I don't give a damn. I'm gonna watch TV down here, kiss my ass. So I gave him the silent treatment, which is, I talk a lot, which was probably in hindsight, he was like, hell yeah, this is life. That bitch ain't talking to me.
I don't know though, because your personality is the type where I'm always the type of guy that's like, I like a girl that could slam me through a table or something, which has happened before. So I'm like, you want the feisty side sometimes, just one that's not going to kill me in my sleep.
Well, let let me finish. So I'm just kidding. But
You
so
said you
I
work
give
for
them
the
this.
state.
I mean, you got to keep them on their toes. But I, gave them like the silent treatment, and like for 3 days, like the guy is not talking. And so it was spring break or whatever. My neighbor had taken the kids to some sort of like putt-putt or something. And we were out and I'm making dinner, or we were inside and I'm making dinner, and I made like, I don't know, Chinese, what were they? Tacos? I don't know, some sort of fucking tacos or something. And I call him down because the kids weren't here. And I was like, hey, I made dinner. And he was like, oh, okay, thanks. Because, at this point, I'm like trying to just be like not so much of an asshole, because I need you to apologize so then I can really tell you how I feel. It's the whole game. But whatever. This was a few years ago. Now I don't play that shit anymore. Over it. But we eat, whatever. The next morning, I say to him, I was like, are you going to apologize? This is bullshit. Blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah. He was like, so he apologizes. And I'm like, what's your malfunction? And we talk about it. And he's like, I have to tell you something. I was like, what? He was like, I legit went upstairs after we ate last night and took like 2 Imodium ADs, because he was like, I was afraid that you were going to like poison me because I've never seen you that mad before.
I'll never forget when I realized that was a thing.
Oh my God.
I was watching Pulp Fiction, and it was when the mother was poisoning the daughter. And my dad just looks at me. He goes, hitting a woman is never right. But if someone would have did that to you, they would have to lock me up. And I'm like, oh, like, is that a thing? Like, does that actually happen? And then this was around the time, like, where there was a lot of news cases about people poisoning people in their food. And I'm like, wow, like, I just don't think I can trust again. And then, like, every girlfriend I've ever had, it's like, what's up? Like, why is it? Why are you so held up in guard? I'm like, I have emotional issues. What do you want from me? Like, I have trauma. There is trauma there. Me and my therapist talk about it. She goes, you seem like you're pretty good at figuring out what your malfunction is. I'm like, yeah, my childhood.
I just need to figure out your malfunction. Is that your response?
I like my physical therapist. She's in her 30s and she's pretty hot. But yeah.
That's important, right?
It is, but when she's kind of like, I have a spine issue, so she's like kind of near the lower part where my ass is. And I'm like, yeah, you can't really get a girl to like you when she's just touching your ass the whole time. I have really good like buns though. Like, you could bounce a quarter off that shit.
Yeah. Well, hopefully she'll never have to stick a finger up your ass. That would get weird. Or maybe you might like that.
That's what I'm saying. I got laid after the purge. Did I get turned on by it? I don't know.
You never know.
I'm pretty passive though. A lot of my stuff is like, when I look at porn, I'm like, God, they can do that? That's why I have so many questions for Ron Jeremy. I would just want to ask him a million different things.
Yeah, we keep going back to this.
I'm excited. He didn't say yes, and he has not answered, and it's been a while, so I don't think it's happening.
I mean,
he might die.
Well, have you thought about other people?
What, in the porn industry?
Yeah.
I've looked up the hashtag porn, but then Instagram's like, this is very, very blocked content. I'm like, well, fuck. Can I look up all the top porn stars? And I invited a lot of them, and none of them get back to me because they have like 1 million followers. I'm like, oh, I'm a small fish in a very, very large, deep-seated, sin-filled pond.
Right now you are.
Are you a porn star?
No.
Oh. You said right now. I'm in a conversation. I have so many questions. One,
I don't know. What is the definition of a porn star?
And somebody in porn, I don't care if it's amateur.
Does it have to be like, no, I'm definitely not a porn star, but I was going to say, like, do you have to
I would talk to the doctor that said I should do porn, but he's in jail. So I kind of can't.
Wait, there's a story.
Yeah, that's also, I've turned it into a bit, but it's a very, very dark story. It's probably where a lot of my emotional issues come from. But no, I was not touched. I was not touched.
Okay. I was touched by a doctor. I talk about it. I got goosed during my annual.
The fuck is goosed?
And he was like, just a real quick, and then he shoved his finger up my ass, and I was not ready, and I did not authorize a rectal. And it was traumatizing. And I actually talk about it on one of our podcasts.
I had that
Like,
happen.
I laugh about it now, but it was not okay in the moment.
I had that happen when I went to the hospital on my birthday. Cause
On your birthday, you got goosed?
so everyone talks about
Did they
their
charge you extra?
well, everybody talks about their 2020 being the worst. Everyone's got a bad 2020. Well, my 2020 started on my birthday on December 31st. I spent the whole entire day in the emergency room for a spinal issue that has been causing me severe pain to this day. But
Hmm.
let me tell you, I had a nurse. She went, I'm going to have to check to make sure because it's a lower back injury. So I need to make sure everything's okay down there. I'm like, fucking just do it. And there's a nurse that had to watch the procedure happen so she sat there in front of me and made eye contact with me. And all you
So
hear is
awkward.
stop. All you hear is the rubber glove made the clap noise. And then she goes, done. And then you hear the glove in the trash can. I'm like, I didn't feel that. And she goes, oh, that's not good. And
Yeah, no, that's not good.
but I looked at the one nurse. I was like, we just made eye contact the whole time. I was hoping to look away when she did it, but I didn't even know she did it. And then I got up. The one nurse was like, are we done here? And walked out of the room. And the other nurse just looks at me, and she's like in her 30s. She's young. And I looked at her and I just go, were you the one that stuck your hand up there? And she goes, yeah. And I go, I put my hand on her shoulder and I swear to you, I said, thank you for sharing that with me. I swear to you, I try to make this woman laugh. And that's what I do every time I go to the doctors. I always I
She
picked out
didn't laugh.
she didn't. She got very serious. And I got my main doctor, the one, not the one that tried to get me into porn, but a different one. When I was choosing a new one because I went to a new place and I was getting an option to choose from, and every one of them had bitch face. I'm like, I'm not choosing any of these doctors. But then there's the young new one, and he was smiling. I'm like, what's his story? Oh, he dressed up like a taco for our Halloween party. I was like, does he have
I
nice
love it.
hands? And then
Because they're gonna go places.
yeah, well, she was like, what? And I was like, just okay. I'll make my appointment and I'll see if he's the one for me. And I walk up there and I literally, I think it was like the next day was my appointment. I shook his hand. I said, oh, you do have nice hands. And he goes, yeah, you know what? The nurse said something about that. And most people would be like, that's very weird to say and very unprofessional. But now meeting you, I like that. It's funny. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we can get along. And yeah, he understands my humor. It's an awkward situation. We'd all want to be there.
Right. I mean, I get it. Like, I had to call and set a new appointment, and I was like, and they at first they were like, well, you can't see a different doctor without this and that. I was like, well, then fine. I was like, then we're clearly going to have a conversation about how he's never sticking his finger in my ass again. I didn't authorize that. And I'm on the phone, and they're like, you could tell that they're trying not to laugh. And I was like, it was not okay with me. I was like, and I know I got charged extra.
If I was the receptionist dealing with that, I would have been like, "Did you have to take a cold shower afterwards and you cry in it?" And then like, if you're like, "Yes," then I'm like, "All right, we'll get you some money." But then if you said no, I was like, "Then you obviously enjoyed it."
I mean, it was so crazy, but that's shit like that happens to me all the time. Well, not really. Like, I mean, I don't
Oh
get
no,
goosed
stop!
all the time.
You're digging a bigger hole that one. Oh my
Yes,
god.
people just roll up but weird stuff happens to me like that all the time though. I get just random things happening all the time.
All right,
Like,
I'm gonna end it on this story because I need to pull you out of this rabbit hole real quick.
I know, please
So I
do.
can relate to you with the whole weird stories. At my gym, I've had the weirdest phone calls of just, I work at 4 a.m., 3 a.m. sometimes. So I'm in there pretty early and that's where weird shit tends to happen. Person called and said, I'm looking for this person. I said, I don't know what to tell you. We're a gym. I can't just look up this person and give you all their personal
Hey.
information. Well, you know what? He's missed this payment on his child support. He's stolen the kids from my house. It starts going into this where, when you meet someone that's been locked up for so long, they start telling you everything in their fucking
Yes.
life. And you're like, Pepsi or Coke? That's what I asked you. So she's
I'm
explaining
not.
me this whole fucking story. And I'm like, I want to tell her to shut up. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm really interested to see where this goes. She goes, how do I proceed with action in a court of law with this? And I'm like, I'm a gym. I don't know how to help you. And she's just like, well, give me someone that can. And I just hung up the phone. And I asked my manager about it. He goes, our phone number is listed the same thing as an attorney in our
Yep.
town. And he goes, that's what happens. And the guy won't switch his number. So sometimes you'll get a call like that. I'm like, wow, like this is a weird fucking day. that now there's
Yeah.
and that person did go to our gym. I searched him. He does. I'm like, hold on a minute. So now every time I see him, I'm just like, you're fucking behind on your
Dude,
payments.
pay your child support, you weirdo.
You got kids, yo. Take care of your business.
Take care of your kids, dog.
All right, promote your podcast. Good
All
God.
right. All right, come watch us. Come play a game with us. We review all sorts of games, mostly for adults. If you're bored, like most of us are during quarantine,
Are you against
check us
Duck
out.
Duck Goose?
No, but I do have to warn you. I probably cheated every single game or tried to manipulate it in some sort of way. So that is a rolling dynamic in our podcast. Basically, it's me, Esther, Theon, and whatever other friends we have come join us. We play and review games. So if you've got a game, you want us to check it out, by all means, we do that too. But we play games, we review them. We just have a good time and talk shit. That's pretty much it.
And I'll make sure to link everything in the description. But this was literally the whole point of Out of the Blank podcast, because I don't know what we discovered, but we learned a lot.
I don't either. I had a good time.
That's the whole point.